Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of Flipping the Bird. As always, I'm your host, Ryder, and today I'm joined by Eddie and Dolan. How are you guys doing today?
I'm pretty good.
Good, I'm good.
All right, so we got a jam-packed episode this week as there's a lot going on, so let's get right into it. We're going to start off with talking about UTSA basketball, both on the men's and women's side. And we're going to start with the men. Their season came to an end this past week against a really good Western Kentucky team in the quarterfinals off a 80-67 loss. And I wanted to get your guys' immediate reactions to that game. Dolan, I want to start with you. Dolan.
Oh, I'm sorry. My internet's been really spotty. My bad. So coming into the game, it's a quarterfinal loss to Western Kentucky after beating Charlotte, which I was actually very surprised that they were able to take that game. They kind of broke the mold that they were fitting into, which is lose in the first half and then do absolutely nothing in the second half. And, you know, when you look at what happened during the Western Kentucky game, it's basically exactly what happened again. So they went down early and were unable to make the points up. I think they went 21-30 something, and then they lost. Then they both scored 42 in the second. And so, like, while I'm happy that they can put up those numbers, I mean, you know, this is a tough game to lose because, you know, you're looking for more. And obviously your dynamic duo didn't show up, which is what my second point is, which is Javon had 5 points. And that is not something you can do if you want to win. Having that happen to them is probably the biggest detriment, I would say. Obviously, like, way too many fouls. We gave way too many fouls. They had like a 90% free throw percentage with like 25 shots going in when we only had like 8 or something like that. So, I mean, you can't be doing that. That's how you're going to lose these simple games. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think that this game kind of sums up what the UTSA looked like, where it's just inconsistency. And it's kind of sad because this is the last game we're going to get to see of Keaton and Javon. So hopefully good things are to come, but I'm a little doubtful just because, again, nobody really showed up other than those two, and Javon didn't show up in the second game. So,
Eddie?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dalton said. I mean, when Javon Jackson has 5 points in the biggest game of the season, it's going to be really hard. And then it's sad because it is Keaton and Javon's last game. And Keaton showed up and he balled out. He left it all out on the court. And then especially after having like a pretty good introduction to Charlotte with Jacob Jeremy going off, if you felt like, you know, and the next game was going to be, you know, totally their momentum. And yeah, it was hard for Javon Jackson to get a groove. It seemed like the length of Western Kentucky really bothered him and he just couldn't get it going. And I think that's why the final was the final.
Yeah, I think really looking at the game and especially watching the game, we just couldn't handle their size inside. Like Massey especially was just eating us alive in the post. And like you guys are saying, I mean, Javon has 5 points. We rely so much on Keaton and Javon to really generate our offense. And when Javon started off so cold, he didn't score in the second half of the Charlotte game either. It was like after that first half where he scored 18 against Charlotte, he just kind of lost his shooting touch and just couldn't find it again. So I think that you're trying to count on some of those bench guys to maybe be able to pick it up. And just we couldn't contend with the length of Western Kentucky, and those bench guys just never got it going. Jacob Germany had he had an all right game against Western Kentucky, but it wasn't, what he did against Charlotte, which was what we needed. We needed a third option to really emerge, and like Jordan Ivy Curry, Cedric Alley just didn't really keep it going for our guys when Javon was having a rough game. So it was a disappointing end to our run because I really did feel like this team had the potential to go on that sleeper run where we have the team that can just score and stay hot. And unfortunately, that just didn't end up happening. So it's a sad end, and I mean, like you guys were saying, this is Javon Keaton's last game. Like Coach Henson seems pretty, certain that this is it for them. They have the option to come back for an extra year of eligibility, but that's not what the program is, expecting to have happen. So it's going to be an interesting era of UTSA basketball moving forward. I mean, this was another quarterfinal exit for UTSA. That's as far as we've ever managed to get with Javon Keaton. I believe that's 3 out of 4 years they were here. So it's rough, but we'll see what ends up happening there. But they did manage to get further than the women's team, who saw their season end with a preliminary round loss to UAB. So Eddie, I want to get your reaction to the end of their season and the actual dismissal of Coach Holt as the head coach of the program as her contract is not being renewed?
Um, I think that I'm happy and kind of sad, but glad that the women's basketball is over. We have a lot of searching to do as far as getting that team going, and I think that move that they did with the firing is definitely the first step. With no conference wins and a really fast bounce out of the tournament or the season, I just think it's time to reset that all. We need a new culture there because with zero conference wins, I feel like, obviously somebody had to be on the hot seat. Who's to blame? The players, the coaching staff, we don't know, but it always ends up on the coaching staff. So I believe that we're on the first move, right track. I'm glad the season's over. It was very hard to watch. It's hard to imagine that there's a repeat of the same outcome that we had this season. So just getting, just one win like on the column will be very refreshing next year. And I'm pretty sure we will not see the same outcome.
I mean, watching that game last week now against UAB, it was just it was painful because it was the same problems that have plagued us all year. Slow start, bad shooting, and we just could never really get back into the game. Like, we played them even down the stretch. I believe in the second half we actually outscored them. And it was just one of those things where if you didn't have that bad start, you could have been in that game. And that's just an issue of the team as a whole this season is they just never had the consistent shooting to stay in those games. And looking at, Coach Holt and everything, it was time to go. She only had, her win totals every year were decreasing. We had our best two scorers this season transfer on us. Adriana Cazadas with Utah State now, and Michaela Woods is in the transfer portal. Like, the team was actively losing our good talent that was going to at least contribute in their upperclassmen years with juniors and as a junior and senior. So it was definitely a team that needed a change, and I'm glad that the athletic department recognized that and is willing to go out there and experiment. Now, I look at the team and I think, okay, our shooting is so bad. We need a coach that's going to be offensively minded. Like, I'm admittedly not familiar with the women's basketball head coaching scene right now in terms of who will be available on the market. But I feel like, especially with our new athletic facility opening up for our training and everything this summer, like, I feel like UTSA will at least be a enticing destination. So I'm hoping we get some sort of mid-major coach with an offensive acumen to really come in and energize the program. Dolan, I wanted to get your reaction to the women's basketball exiting in the preliminary round and then Coach Holt's dismissal.
I mean, it kind of seems like they go hand in hand, right? Obviously, the team was not performing all year. We were unable to really stack up any wins against any competitive teams. And even in the games that we lost, most of them weren't close, and it didn't seem like there was any change happening from day to day and week to week. I didn't see much improvement in the defensive end. I didn't see any improvement on the offensive end. So, I mean, just looking at those two things in mind, like, there's not a whole lot you can really defend on her behalf. And I think that while it might be sad to, say goodbye to one of our coaches, I think that it's the right move in UTSA's path. And again, I'm also not super familiar with the female basketball head coaching positions, but I mean, anybody seems to be better than this, right? It seemed like we had a lot of talent, and I know it's hard to integrate some players into the new system, especially with COVID and everything. I understand that it's a difficult task, but literally losing every single game to basically every single person and being the last place team in your conference is going to mean that you're going to lose your job. So it sucks to say, but again, I do agree with you on the side that I think that with the new training facility, I think that's going to be a huge enticing thing. And I think people will often look at UTSA as like a school that you can get into and actually be able to coach the players instead of just having to form to some idea of what they want. So I think that they can do a lot. So I think hopefully it's a really enticing offer to a lot of head basketball coaches.
Right, and I do want to add on to that Yuliana Yabaucheva had a really good game for us in the preliminary round, at least. I mean, we came up short, but she was honestly the only player outside of Carrington Donald who is departing after her senior season that was really contributing out there. So look for her next year to really kind of be our go-to option. So that'll be very interesting to keep a hold of. Now, I want to talk UTSA baseball. We got off to a really good start this season, and we've hit a 5-game losing streak, dropping 5 straight to TCU, LSU, and Baylor on Sunday. So I wanted to get you guys' reactions. How good is this team actually? Because we lost a bunch of really close games this week. Dolan, I want to start with you.
Looking at the baseball team, I've never really followed the UTSA baseball cycle too closely, but we opened up the season to what I thought was going to be amazing. Everyone looking at it, it seems like we're kind of faltering here. I'm not sure what we really need to do to fix it, and yeah, I mean, I wish I had a little bit more thing, but I just don't. And I have no idea, but losing these games after having kind of
All right, Eddie, we'll go to you.
Yeah, just like you said, it started off strong, and I actually started paying even closer attention because I know this is your sport and what you like. So as soon as I jumped on it, man, these were like some very tough games to watch, and just the 5 skid that we had. It's tough, like LSU losing by 1, and the past couple of games we've really just lost by 1. I know it was it LSU that they lost by 1 twice?
Yeah, LSU, we lost back-to-back games by 1 in extra innings. TCU, we lost by 3. Baylor, we lost by 2. And then the other LSU game, we lost by 2. So, I mean, we're playing, and these are nationally ranked teams in TCU and LSU, and then Baylor is really hot right now. So, I mean, like, these are really strong teams we're losing to very close. And at least in the, case of the LSU games, we lost by 1. We were leading in extra innings in both of those games. We had 3-run leads in both of those games that we just blew. So, I mean, they're close games.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like this team's identity is still good. Like how they're blowing out. Of course, they're not going to blow out team like these teams, like Arlington, 16-1. But like you said, LSU and Baylor are pretty big schools. So maybe they needed this to know that, maybe they're not as good, and just get a little bit of humbled pie, and maybe they can just learn to finish, because that seemed to be the problem, losing by 1 to LSU a couple times.
Yeah. And looking at this, I mean, like, my biggest takeaway from these 5 games is we can score. Our offense is fantastic. I mean, we put up in our last 3 games, we put up 9 on LSU, we put up 12 on LSU again, and we put up 8 on Baylor. The only issue is we gave up 10, 13, and then 10 again. Like, our relief pitching especially is a major cause for concern. We had back-to-back 3-run leads in extra innings. And we blew it. We just couldn't hold on to it, which you just cannot do if you want to be a good baseball team. So our offense is fantastic. Guys like Bailey, Rock, and Paxton especially. Oh, and Bergeron. Like, they were hot this last series. Like, we have a bunch of really good hitters, top to bottom, 1-9. We can score with anybody. Our pitching just needs to be able to limit the damage somewhat. We don't need to be perfect, but I mean, if we can just limit them to 5 runs or something in any single game, I have a really good chance of better thoughts of victory. So 5-game slide, yes, bullpen cause for concern, but it's not the end of the world. There is hope. These are good teams we're losing to. Stay the course. I think come Conference USA play, we're going to be very dangerous.
And would you say it's more of like our defensive side end or pitching rotation?
It's definitely the pitching. Like, our fielding has been relatively solid. I cannot recall many errors, at least on the box score. So the defense is fine. It's just the pitching, especially home run. The home run ball, especially in the LSU series, was just biting us. We couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark, especially in extra innings. So that's something that we really need to work on. We need to, even if you can't strike a guy out, just induce a weak grounder, a fly ball. Just don't let them get it all back in one swing. That's the key that we really need to focus on. Now, UTSA soccer is continuing a bit of an uneven start to the year. We fell to 2-5-1 on the season after a loss on March 12th to Southern Mississippi, and we're being outscored 6-9 despite holding an overall shot margin over our opponents of 100-64 on the season. So, Eddie, I wanted to start with you. What does this team really need to do? Is it just a matter of staying the course, or does something need to change on our back end to maybe keep these games, even?
It's kind of tough. I mean, other than Southern Miss, I think we weren't that far off from beating the other team. I know these games are long, but I think our only shot against Southern Miss was it Sandoval that scored?
I believe so.
Yeah, Sandoval had scored. So yeah, I think I agree with you just with what you just said. I think we just need to stay the course. The record is kind of strange, uh, but it's still too early, I think, to determine what kind of team this is. Um, Again, like any other sport, it's kind of hard to determine soccer because it's just such a paceful, like chess back and forth kind of sport. So yeah, I think it's just we need a little bit more time to understand this team's identity.
Dalton?
Yeah, like Eddie said, soccer is one of those sports where in a moment's notice, it can all just change for you. And coming into the season, we took our first win against Texas A&M Corpus Christi in a 2-0, which I thought was really impressive. Going against a school like Rice, I mean, Rice is, where they make up for their football and other things. They come in there a lot of other sports. And Rice soccer team is definitely, I would say, in Conference USA, they are top 5.
I would agree with that.
I think I mean, it's hard to rank them right now just because it's so early on to the season. But yeah, I think that UTSA taking the losses against Rice, UTRGV, and then even in these last couple games taking another loss to Rice, picking up a win against Houston Baptist. I think it's good for the team, but I do agree that I think they should just stay the course. The Southern Miss game, it's definitely a difficult one. I'm looking forward to. I believe unfortunately, we don't play them again this season, which is unfortunate for us. But I think that if we just continue to play the way that we've been playing, I think that we can definitely make up some of the ground. I think that a lot of it are just like last minute decisions and some of the defensive pressure that they're playing. They're running like I think was it a 3-3-4 or something?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, they're running a 3-3-4, which means that they're a little less confident in their defensive capabilities, which I think is probably their weakest suit. So I think just following along those lines, I think that they'll continue to improve slowly. So I look forward to seeing what else they can do.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that we are so far winless in conference play at 0-3, but we do have an opportunity to get back on the right track on Sunday against UAB and then next week against UTEP. I think those are both games that we have a shot at that we can win, and I think that's important because you don't want to go 2-7-1 at this point in the season. Like, you don't want to start spiraling like that. So I think that especially we need goals. We need to start scoring because we're out shooting them. We're generating offense. We're just not finishing. And I feel like if we can just get a game where we can score 2 or score 3, that'll kind of break that barrier in our mind. And that'll, like, once things start going in, you start to feel a little bit better, right? So, like, I feel like if we can just get some goals to we can get some shots to start going in, I think that'll help solve the offense. And then we can start to focus a little more on the defensive end because we're in the awkward position of, okay, we need to focus on our defensive end because that's not our strong suit, but now we're not scoring. So, like, there needs to be a balance there that we just haven't quite found yet. And I think that next week is a chance for improvement in that regard.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like, if we just scored 1 goal against Rice, like Dalton was saying, and Louisiana Tech, we pretty much like tie the game. Like, that's all they needed, and we can have bonus time, and who knows what the outcome of that would be. So it's 3 games just by 1, and I know Southern Miss was the biggest loss they had, 3-1. So we're not that far off. So I just think, like you said, stay the course and score some goals because in 3 of them, if we just score 1, it's a totally different record. So
I think that the defensive end is something that they're definitely addressing with the scheme that they're running on the field. And while we're pouring a lot of resources into our defense, because I think that's where we're less confident, I think even though we have such an offensive prowess, I think that it's hard to score when you're just outmanned. And, if you can't get more people down the field, there's not really an opportunity for you to score. And even though we're holding such high possession of the ball, it's not panning out for us just because the scheme that we're running. So hopefully they address the defense and this next week, and then moving forward, hopefully they just continue to play just this like heavy, high impact offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. All right. So as their counterparts in the men's side are doing, UTSA softball is also in a bit of a slump right now. A 5-game losing streak. Most recently got swept in a 2-game series against Texas State by scores of 0-5 and 1-8. This following up a blowout loss to BYU 2-11, 5 innings. So, Don, I want to start with you. What's this team looking like right now? Like, where do they need to improve to get back on track here?
Coming out of the UTSA Classic, which was their last event that they were actually playing well in, they were doing pretty good. They went 2-2 in it. They beat the 2 components. Who did they play? God, it's running out of my mind. But I
beat Kansas and UT Arlington.
Thank you. They beat Kansas and UT Arlington in the first round, and then they lost them in the next games that they played. But they were also close. Yeah, Texas was able to beat Texas Southern 2-1. Mostly off the back of Riley Grunberg, again with another home run, which
monster.
I mean, that seems to be like she seems to be the face of the team at this point, and I'm happy to see that because I've watched her for a while now, and she's been really good. In the second game against McNeese, it was just an even game as usual until the 5th when Grunberg hit with loaded bases, which then followed by in the 6th with a hit by Brooke and a homer, which was still a loss, unfortunately. 5-6, just because the early game was so rough for the UTSA Roadrunners, and then they were unable to stop any of the hits that they were getting off. Then continuing throughout the game, they lost to Texas Southern again, which in that matchup, it's real defense heavy. Neither teams were really able to get a lot of hits off. In the first one, it was 2-1. In this one, it was 0-1, which was a loss for us, unfortunately, which started the 5-game lose streak. Going against BYU, I mean, it started off well. Grunberg hit a home run, putting them up 2-0. And then the 4th hit, which was a 10-point gap for BYU. And I mean, once a team gets that much momentum in in an inning, you're less worried about winning the game and more about just closing out this inning. So it's a lot harder for a team to stay focused, especially when playing against such a high-powered school like BYU. Texas State game, I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot to look at. It's kind of chopped up to just a better team. Texas State has played 14. They're 14-3. BYU is 10-10, and UTSA is 5-6. I mean, the amount of games difference there is insane. I also think that pitching is a huge problem. UTSA girls are able to hit tons of home runs, and if they aren't able to, they're not able to play the bases that well. And Texas State and BYU beat us by playing the bases. I think that we can beat a lot of teams with a weak pitching core because we're able to hit a lot of home runs off the back of Riley Grunberg, Madison Washington, but we cannot hit against teams that are going to make us play for 1 base, 2 base here. So I think that that's our biggest stretch, our biggest problem. But I also think the number of games is pretty huge because we had to cancel basically half our season at this point. So I think we would be a totally different team if we had played those games, but unfortunately we were unable to.
Eddie, we'll go to you.
Sorry, I was muted there. Totally agree with Dalton was saying. I think the problem though, the past 5 games, another skid. The 5-game skid is that the scoring. The past 5 games, we scored a total of 5 points. Southern Miss, they were shut out. Texas State's first meeting, we were shut out. I don't know if the team is overwhelmed by defenses or if we can't score. But yeah, once again, I just think the offense just couldn't get it going. 5 total points in the last 5 games is it's never good. And 8-1 against Texas State, 5-0 against Texas State the first time. I just think our offense needs to get clicking and going.
Yeah, I also think I agree with that point. And I mean, I think it's just hard because the teams that we have faced, I don't think have the strongest pitching cores. But when you look at it, BYU and Texas State, I mean, those are schools that are like known for good softball teams. And they have like their pitching core is pitching at a lot higher level than a lot of our schools that we're facing right now. So I think that's kind of like the first like realization of maybe that, while we're getting these home runs, we definitely need to be focusing more on base play. So I'm definitely interested to see what they do with that. But
yeah, kind of like you guys are saying, just basically took all my points I was going to say, actually. And this kind of is just overall a tendency with teams like this. You see this in the majors too. It's like a team that hits a lot of home runs is really, really great until you reach a good team with a good pitching staff, and all of a sudden you're just completely like shut down. Like good pitching will almost always beat a team that relies so heavily on the home run ball. At a certain point, you need to learn how to score using singles and doubles. You can't just get away with hitting, solo home runs with any consistency, because you're just not going to be able to do that against good pitching. Yeah. So I think that we definitely need to learn how to play small ball a little bit better if we're going to be able to beat these teams like a BYU or a Texas State. So I think that's something that we have to work on. And then, of course, the pitching. I mean, we can't stay in ball games early. We can't give up these early leads and stuff and then just have to come back from 5-6 run deficits by the end of the game. Like, that just isn't sustainable. So I think that this team, they have the pieces. They've shown they have talent. I mean, Grunberg especially is just amazing. Like, she was hitting above 500 for a large portion of the early part of the season, actually. Just killing the ball. I mean, like, she's been in a slump recently, and she's still hitting 333. Like, she's just been dominant out there for us. So, I mean, like, we have a lot of players like that. So, like, this team can be good. We just have some little things to fix.
Yeah. I agree.
And scoring is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
All right, now turning our attention to golf. Men's and women's team had some very successful tournaments in their last, like, major team competitions. The women's team took part in our home course, the Mary B. Couth Invitational. They actually took second place, and then our men's team had a second place finish in the Trinity Forest Invitational. So, Eddie, I want to start with you. How well are these teams playing right now, and where do you think we're heading coming towards the end of the season up here?
On the UTSA men's golf?
Yeah, let's start with the men's.
Or both? Okay. With men's, I think starting good. I know Adam House and David Harrison did okay. And me and Dalton were talking about how it's good that they're putting golf on the map for UTSA early on. And I didn't keep up with the women's. So, Dalton, if you wanted to touch up on that.
Yeah, the women's team has been good at UTSA for a while now. We've competed in 4 tournaments this year. And we've actually taken second. This is our second time taking second, which is really cool. The last one was in the Texas State Invitational, I'm pretty sure.
That is correct, yeah.
It was a Texas State Invitational. I mean, obviously, like, Cameron Karan, sole possession of 5th place here. Anna Gonzalez tied for 6th. And then Hannah Holzman ended up sharing 8th for the UTSA Roadrunners. I mean, that trio there is obviously what's putting UTSA on the map right now. They are insane, especially Cameron Karan. I'm very surprised that she's continued to perform tournament after tournament. I think she finished 5th in a tournament with some highly ranked national teams, which I think was their first tournament this year. And she has just been dominating, honestly. There's not a whole lot to say about that. And while I think this is awesome for the men's team to take second, this has kind of been the women's team has been on the map and has been playing well this entire season. And the men this is their 3rd tournament. The first one got canceled.
Correct.
Yeah, hold on. So they placed 6th and 8th, and then in this most recent one they placed 2nd, which is awesome for them. So I think the women's team is been holding it down. I think the men's team, if they can continue putting up second places, top half finishes, then I think that this makes UTSA look, maybe we're a golf school. So who knows? It's beginning to look a little bit like that. So I'm pretty impressed with what they've been doing and how they've been performing lately.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the men's side, I mean, we're beating a lot of nationally ranked teams at this point. I mean, I think the latest rankings, at least by whatever like major authority does like the NCAA golf rankings, has us 26th in the country now. And just in this last tournament, I mean, we lost to SMU, who's ranked 13th, but we beat TCU, who's ranked 38th, Louisville 37th, North Texas 18th, and then the SMU B team, which is also ranked 13th. I don't quite know how that one works, but I mean, Chad Sewell, Colin Clark, I mean, those guys were really solid for us, and they have been. Christian Banfeld, too. Like, men's golf has been very consistent. We've just been going up against a lot of really, really good programs. So the results haven't quite matched. But, I mean, this last tournament, I mean, we were fantastic. I mean, we lost by I mean, we lost pretty handily, at least SMU. SMU beat everybody by 27 at least. I mean, like SMU just kind of blew everybody out. But I mean, at least on the individual leaderboard, I mean, Sewell finished 8 shots off the lead, but only a couple bit behind top 5. So I mean, like men's golf is off to a really good start. I mean, we're almost, we're nationally ranked at this point, which is a rarity for any UTSA program, honestly. So really good start for them. And then on women's side, I mean, like you're saying, Dalton, I mean, Cameron's been on fire, Anna Gonzalez, I mean, Holzman. I mean, the women's team has just been so consistent. It's the same like group of 4 girls up there every single week in the tournaments. I mean, top 30 finishes just throughout. Like they've been so consistent. So I mean, like maybe we are a golf school. I don't know. That'd be an interesting discussion to have at the end of the semester or something. Is UTSA a blank school? I mean, like that'd be a fun discussion to have. Now, there are a couple of major tournaments going on at the end of this month. March Madness, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. And this is, of course, a very interesting and different year in that, due to COVID restrictions and everything, most of these teams have been quarantined now for a couple of days. I mean, you need 7 negative tests just to get to the event in a row. And the entire tournament is being held in one city, Indianapolis for the men, and then on the women's side in San Antonio here. Now, I want to focus on the men's side first. I want you guys both to give me your Final Four predictions out here. And Eddie, I want to start with you. Who's going to the Final Four for the men's side?
That's tough. I'm gonna go ahead and put Gonzaga on there. It's either Alabama or Michigan, and then I want to say for South and Midwest, definitely not UT. I'd say Baylor in Illinois. That'll be my 4. For now, at least.
Like looking at the top left of the bracket, Gonzaga is coming into this tournament undefeated. If they're my favorites to win. I mean, they've looked phenomenal all year. It's hard to really say that they're not going to make it out of this, and I would be very surprised if they were upset, even by like someone like Iowa. I'd have Gonzaga, Texas, obviously, got to represent 3rd seed this year after being 69th team in the country last year. So, pretty exciting.
Chalk out here saving his job.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy. I'm surprised, actually. I'm surprised. Then on the other side, we have Baylor, which is coming in at 22-2, which is pretty impressive. A lot of their wins have been pretty handed, but I think I'm going to take Ohio State in this one. I think that Baylor might be showing a little bit of inexperience. They've had a hot start for the past 2 years here, but they haven't been able to finish in these games. So I'm going to take Ohio State on that side, and I'm going to go chalk with Illinois.
All right, so for me personally, I think you have to take Gonzaga up in the upper left quadrant there. I mean, like, they're pillar to post, best team all year. And I mean, the major knock of mid-major teams is always, they haven't played anybody. Well, Gonzaga's played a lot of people. I mean, they've beaten most of the top-ranked teams in the country. Aside from, they didn't get the chance to play Baylor, right? Did they ever get a chance to go play? No, they didn't, because that game got canceled. It's like that was like the one matchup they didn't really get to play with like the marquee teams out there this season. I mean, they've beaten most of the other really good favorites in this bracket, at least especially on their side. They've already beaten Virginia. They've already beaten Kansas. Like they've beaten these teams already. So I think you have to go with Gonzaga up in the top left there. Looking at the bottom left with, in the East bracket, I mean, Michigan, their starting point guard's hurt now. He broke a bone in his foot, I believe, stress fracture, right? And so he's going to be out. So they're missing their biggest piece. And that's why I really like Alabama down there. I think they play they play a completely min-max, like Daryl Morey, like fever dream style of offense of everything is at the rim or behind the 3-point line. They have no mid-range game whatsoever. And like they played really well in the SEC tournament. I think that they've really been coming on strong down the stretch here. So I like Bama in the East. Up at the South, Baylor has been a little shaky for me, especially coming down the stretch. So I think I'm going to go with Ohio State with Dalton there just because they were good in the Big Ten tournament. They knocked off Michigan, who admittedly were without their point guard. But even then, they gave Illinois a game in that Big Ten title game. Like that was a really good overtime contest. If you want a sleeper from that region, though, Arkansas. Like that is they're a 3 seed, but Arkansas is dangerous. But I'm going to take Ohio State in that division, in that quadrant. And then finally in the Midwest, I mean, it's boring. I got to go chalk, though. Illinois is so hot right now. Like nobody is going to want to play Illinois, which is really sad because they got Loyola Chicago in the second round if they beat Georgia Tech. And man, I want Sister Jean to stick around till the Final Four, but I don't think that Chicago can beat Illinois this time around and like Loyola Chicago is really good. I honestly thought the guy kind of got a little bit of the short end of the stick with an 8 seed there. I thought that team was way better than, I mean, it's kind of like mid-major curse of, you're a mid-major school, so we can't give you anything higher than a, 8 seed unless you're like super, like if you're not Gonzaga or Wichita State a couple years ago, you're probably not going to get a top seed. But I was a little disappointed with Loyola Chicago, but put me down for Illinois in this bracket. I mean, they just look so strong.
Yeah, literally everything except the Midwest is like pretty exciting. There's a lot of like pretty powerhouse schools in every single one of these conferences. And yeah, I mean, we could have been in the South, Texas, UTSA against Purdue here, but unfortunately we lost that one. So, but yeah, the Midwest is probably the most boring of them. I think it's easiest for the casual basketball fan to go super chalk here. I mean, I think Loyola Chicago will get a lot of people winning that just from like purely bracket standpoints because they know the name for some reason. So, but yeah, the Midwest is definitely probably the least interesting of this four.
Although Oklahoma State down there in that 4-13 matchup against Liberty, that is going to be a very interesting first round game, and Oklahoma State could make a run there because Cade Cunningham, he can ball. That's a first round pick, first overall right there.
Agreed.
So both of y'all have Ohio State coming out of there?
Baylor's just been a little too shaky for me down the stretch, and it always isn't like your overall body of work matters, but I want to know what you've done in the last month heading into the tournament. That's how I usually end up picking.
Yeah.
I want to have hot teams because hot teams are the ones that make it to the end.
Yeah, it's definitely what have you done for me lately league. So you think they can beat Baylor and you think they could beat Arkansas?
I do.
Okay. Interesting to see.
All right. So now, of course, one of the fun things about the first round is we always get, there's always an upset every year. So Dalton, give me a first round upset special to keep an eye on there when you're out there picking your bracket.
It's easy to do 8-9, right? Those are always the easiest. Let me look for one that I think.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me make it a little harder. Give me a 12 or lower upset.
12 or lower. Okay. So let's see who's in the 12 seed. Okay, Gonzaga's not losing that one. UCSB. That's surprising. I mean, they're coming from not exactly top of the top schools. The West 5 UCSB versus Crescenton. I think.
Yeah, Creighton versus UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah, there's a couple of these that I'm not entirely sure who they are because I haven't followed all these brackets, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing them. But I'm just gonna give a random one. Yeah, I'll probably go the first one. I'll go Crescenton versus USCB. That seems like an easy one.
All right, Eddie.
What else is there?
After looking here for a bit, I like Georgetown in Colorado, maybe.
Georgetown's hot. I mean, they pulled off that Big East tournament upset.
And that's exactly what I was going to point out because of Georgetown being hot. So, like you said, it's what have you done for me lately? And I think Georgetown can do it. I mean, they're just a +4 underdog, so it's not that far off from a number 12 against a number 5. So, but you said 12 and under, right?
That counts. I mean, like Georgetown will qualify for that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I always love the 5-12 matchup because that usually is a good but not great Power 5 team going up against like the best mid-major teams possible. This year is a little bit of a different kind of breed because we had 2 upset winners in the Pac-12 and the Big East tournaments with Oregon State and Georgetown eating up 2 of those 12 seeds. But for me, at least, I know this is kind of like the widespread one right now, but I like Winthrop over Villanova in the South region. Villanova is without their starting point guard. He's lost for the year due to an MCL tear. And Villanova has looked pretty like they don't look like a good team anymore. Like they did all their work early in the season to build up that record. And since then, it's just been kind of downhill when they lost their guy. And Winthrop is good. They run the floor. They shoot well. So I like Winthrop in that classic 12-5 matchup. But if there's like one like really like sleeper out there, I mean, let's give a little. I mean, I know I picked them, but like Iona and Alabama down there in the 215, down in the East. I mean, Iona's got Patino coaching them, and say what you will about Patino and strip clubs and stuff, but he knows how to coach a basketball team. So I don't know, Iona. I'm not saying pick them, but I'm saying hey, they have a puncher's chance, but definitely Winthrop over Villanova. I think that is that classic 12-5. That just feels right kind of game.
Could also see Texas bouncing out Dalton, to be honest. I could honestly see them.
Could you?
Could. Abilene Christian. They're pretty like solid defensive team, and they're very consistent in shooting the three ball. And I don't think you can pinpoint something that Texas is really good at. I just think they're well coached and solid everywhere across the board. But there's not one thing that scares you. So I think if Abilene Christian could take the underdog role, I mean, they're good on 3 and D, so that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, we'll have to see. The one thing I will say is that Texas, even though last year they did not make the tournament and they ended up going, what is it? What is the tournament that they do for the teams that don't make it?
The NIT.
The NIT. We are
the National Invitational Tournament that for the longest time I always thought was literally just stood for not in tournament.
Pretty much.
It's basically nothing. But one thing that Texas did show is they came into that tournament as, I think they came in as a 4th seed. And they were able to play all the way through, and they ended up winning the entire thing. So this Texas team does show that when it comes to competitions and when it comes to tournament style brackets, that they can perform. And I mean, for the entire year, they've shown that they can win these close games. So yeah, I think while that Abilene Christian has a chance, I think that Texas is going to take this one just because their roster and what they've been is the same as they were last year. And I mean, they won the NIT, so they know how to go far in these tournaments and they know how to win these games. So
I will say, I mean, you got a coach there in Texas with Shaka Smart that has experience in the NCAA tournament, working with a group that maybe isn't as talented up front as Texas was with VCU. So I mean, he has the tournament credentials. He's gotten a team to the Final Four before, so I think that Texas does have a shot. So we'll see. Although I think another team that maybe goes under the radar that could make some noise is Florida State. They kind of had a bit of a rough end of the ACC tournament. They're losing to Georgia Tech in the semis and everything, but they were pretty much far and away the best team in that conference throughout the season. And they've got a division down there in the East that's almost wide open. I mean, I could see 5 teams with a legitimate shot at winning that bracket. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there are a lot of these schools. I think it's kind of hard to go against the chalk, right? So
I mean, you always kind of pick chalk, right? Like they're the best teams for a reason. I mean, but there's always that one team every year, right? Like, it's almost never 4-1 seeds. Like that rarely happens. Always somebody sneaks in.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird that I think talking about Tech might be a little something that we might want to look more into. I mean, they went all the way to the finals last year, so this is a
That's
team.
True.
This is a team that was solid, and I know that they lost a good amount of their players, but I mean, they still came in as a 6th seed. So they're definitely somebody to look at, especially coming to the South, where I think that Baylor, the top seed, came in a little shaky. I mean, Ohio State is definitely probably their biggest contender. And I mean, they still have a lot of good teams to play. They got to play Arkansas, but I think Tech is another school that you might want to keep your eyes on. And if you're looking to make that trying to go against the chalk a little bit and be a little adventurous, you might want to put Tech coming out on top of Arkansas. So something to look at for that.
If you want like one more factor to look out for, I mean, COVID, that's huge. I mean, like you look at Gonzaga's bracket. I mean, Virginia and Kansas both have COVID issues. I mean, they're going to be without a couple players at least to start and maybe for the entire tournament. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, yes, you usually feel confident picking, Virginia or Kansas to get to at least the Sweet 16. But now, I mean, shoot, we don't know which players are missing. At least I don't think we do.
Yeah.
And like, shoot, that's crapshoot. I mean, then there's the, what if another team has COVID issue and everything? I mean, like, that's like that wild card here. Like, for all we know, a 1 seed could have COVID issues like the night before a game and then they're out. So,
It's a lot of factors.
It's going to be a very interesting men's side.
Yeah.
And then I think, looking at the women's side, I feel fairly confident in saying, at least from what I've seen this year, we're probably looking at Stanford UConn. I mean, I feel like chalk holds up more often on the women's side. So, if you had to give me a winner of a hypothetical national title game between Stanford and UConn, which would you go with? Dolan, I want to start with you.
That's a good question. I guess I would take UConn. I'd take UConn. My reason?
Okay, no, I want a reason, Dolan.
Oh, UConn. They have been a school that, I mean, they've been known for their women's basketball. UConn is definitely one of those schools that, when I think of the women's basketball scene, I think of UConn. I'm pretty sure, rest in peace to Kobe, but that was where his daughter wanted to play, and I know he spent a good amount of time there. And he would always talk about how they know how to play and they know how to win. And I know Stanford. I actually haven't watched any of the Stanford games, which I feel bad, but I have caught the tail end of a couple of UConn games, and they know how to close out these games. So I'm not entirely sure what Stanford looks like, but I would take UConn just because of the name recognition and that, they got something to play for. So,
Eddie?
Yeah, totally agree. Taking UConn as well, and that's for all the points that Dalton brought up. I mean, UConn literally is women's basketball. I mean, they've been there so many times. It's just hard to go against them. And I know Stanford's good. I mean, we'll probably see South Carolina make a push and Texas A&M as well. But yeah, I'd have to go with UConn just because they're literally always there, every year. So I think that experience just gives them the upper hand for favorites.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to go with UConn, and it's mostly because they've been there before. I mean, Gino, who admittedly is going to be out for the first game due to COVID protocol, at least I know that he has the virus right now. So, there's no guarantee they'll have their coach at least for the first 2 rounds. But, I mean, Paige Becker especially, she can ball. That is a surefire WNBA. She's going to be a star. So I look at these teams, and I think the Stanford will make it. I mean, they're the number 1 overall seed for a reason. They only lost twice all year. They're the number 1 overall seed. Stanford is going to be in there. I think that's going to be a great game. If you have to watch one women's basketball game this year, make it the finals, UConn, Stanford. I mean, assuming they make it. But, I mean, women's basketball tends to be a little more chalky, right? I think we can all agree on that. 1s and 2 seeds tend to make it a little more often than the men's side.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to watch, though.
Yeah. And I mean, UConn, always makes it, so it's hard to go against them.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to our last major overarching topic, NFL free agency, or at least the legal tampering period, which is one of the weirdest concepts in all of sports, to me at least, got kicked off. And we have seen a lot of moves, starting off with the Patriots. They don't want to miss the playoffs again. Bill opened the vault. Eddie, I want to start with you. Patriots brought in a lot of guys.
Okay, so I think this is going to be a lot, but I think the first step to at least making progress off of last year was re-signing Cam Newton, because I don't think, they were going to get Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, any big high name, because the Patriots never spend money, or so we thought up until this week. Yeah. So they gave Cam Newton $15 million for the year, but he's not really getting 15. He's only getting 6. I think the 15 is optional, depending on how he does on the year. And Cam didn't do bad. I didn't think he did bad. I mean, there were still some flashes of him that we could say, that maybe Cam's still there, maybe he's not. Of course, he's not the same Cam Newton of 2016 MVP, but I think Cam had some flashes. Also, his team was just trash. That's why Tom Brady left, because his team's not good anymore. Julian Edelman's getting older, and after that, you can't even name another receiver who can catch the ball. But that's neither here or there. We're going to talk about what happened this week. Just like you said, they signed Kendrick Bourne. I mean, nothing too crazy. Good receiver. They got Jalen Mills, cornerback from the Eagles. I didn't think he was that crazy good of a corner. But again, they are loading up. Nelson Aguilar. I mean, this dude was getting hammered on being for the Eagles for not catching a single pass. But he's gotten better. He's developed with Oakland. And the biggest sign I think was Matthew Judon for 4 years. A lot of people say the Patriots don't pay; they give him 56 million. And then who else did they get here?
Hunter
Tight
Henry.
ends.
Janu Smith for 4 years, 50 mil, and Hunter Henry. So they got a two pair of tight ends. And I mean, the Patriots are heavy on tight ends. I think that's a team that starts with their tight ends. After having Rob Gronkowski for so long, and yeah, they spent almost close to 200 mil. Their cap. I don't know where they got all this money, but they definitely loaded up. I feel like another year under Cam Newton will be good, and I think this team will be a playoff team.
Dalton.
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I think that this team will definitely be a wild card team. I think it might be hard to say that they win the division, given that the Bucks are in it. And even though the Dolphins aren't making a move, I still have faith in them. I think the Patriots picked up a lot of good players. They're projected to spend $230 million, but I think they're only supposed to spend actually 150 million guaranteed. So I doubt they'll actually spend all that money, the 230. But yeah, they picked up a lot of good players. Obviously, they stacked their tight ends with Hunter Henry and Geno Smith. And I think I'm surprised that Bill made the push this year. Because while I do think free agency this year, I mean, if you just look at what they picked up, it's pretty insane. But I'm surprised that he made the push this year, especially given the fact that Tom Brady had just left. But I think that might actually be a factor as well, as he left and then they didn't really do anything. And then he's like, oh, well, maybe I should spend some money. And then on top of that, I think the pick order that they got wasn't exactly what they were looking for. They were looking for a Trevor Lawrence this year, and they were unable to get it. So I think that they felt that they needed to spend some more money. Do I think that this team will click instantly? I'm not sure. I think giving Cam more options is pretty good for him. I think that will definitely make him look a lot better of a quarterback. I don't think it will be okay. Let's hope that Cam can run for 300 yards this game, and comparative to okay, let's see if Cam can actually throw the ball. So I think having some more people blocking for him would be important, especially in those tight end positions. But I'm curious to see what they can do with this roster. I know Bill is an amazing coach, definitely one of the best to ever do it. So maybe he can turn this team into a championship team, but it's pretty stacked out there. So not sure for him.
Yeah, I kind of like echoing what you're saying, Don. I mean, like they really went out and kind of like made sure that okay, if we fail again this year with Cam under center, it's all on Cam. Because we went out and we got him Kendrick Bourne, great kind of like route running receiver. Nelson Aguilar, you got a deep burner threat that can catch the deep ball at least much better than he did with Philly. Vegas and Oakland was a real career renaissance for him. I thought he actually, I mean, he was sought after in free agency versus getting the veteran minimum like he did with with the Raiders. Everything. Yeah. And then with those tight ends, I mean, come on. The Patriots go out and take both Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry off the market. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, leave some tight ends for the rest of us. Like, geez, man. So, like, it's all on Cam at this point. Like, if Cam can't succeed with those weapons around him and a defense that's being fortified again, I mean, like, Bill's going to – if all those COVID opt-outs like Hightower and Chung come back, I mean, that Patriots defense is top 5 easily in the league. Yeah. Like they will be able to win games just by holding people under 20 points most days. So it's all on Cam. If Cam isn't able to succeed with this team around him, then it's time for him to probably walk away because like Bill is doing everything in his power. He went out and he spent the money to make sure that Cam had options to throw to. It's no longer, oh, I'm going to throw to N'Keal Harry who can't separate, or I'm throwing to whatever 5'11" white guy Bill pulled off the street to come play for us this week. Like he's got options to throw to now. So we'll see what ends up happening with the Patriots. But I mean, this was a very uncharacteristic move for the Patriots because they don't spend money and they went out, and especially Judon, like that was not something I saw coming at all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's fair. I don't agree with you saying it's all on Cam. I don't think that's fair at all because the first year, I mean, he literally didn't have anything. And yeah, although these signings are pretty good, I don't think they're A-plus players at their position. Like, there was still a Kenny Golladay and Juju Smith out there that are still free. And I believe they needed to land one of those at least to have at least a wide receiver number one because I don't think Kendrick Bourne or Nelson Aguilar are number one
That's fair to
receivers.
say. I mean, they're two options basically. They're number twos.
Yeah, and like, I mean, yeah, they're pretty much number twos. I think the tight end position will definitely be better to help Cam out. But yeah, I think this was more of Bill getting pissed off because Tom went on to win a ring, and the year he leaves, his team does not make the playoffs. And ever since Tom's been there, they've made the playoffs, except when he tore his ACL, but you can't really count that. Um, so I think yeah, this was Bill like actually saying, you know what, like it's time. Maybe Tom was right, and let's see if I can do it with refueled power. And I think this was going on, but to put it all on Cam next year, I don't know. That's rough. That's rough right there.
And of course, the Patriots were the only ones making moves. The Kansas City Chiefs went through a major offensive line reshuffling, cut Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz to create cap space earlier in the week, and then went out and signed Joe Tooney. So from the Patriots for a 5-year, $80 million deal, I believe was the term. So Patrick Mahomes is going to have a bunch of new faces protecting him next year. So Eddie, I want to start with you. I mean, like, what is Kansas City doing, especially coming off of a year where you ended the season with Mahomes running for his life? And now you're going out and cutting a bunch of his linemen. Then you resign, and then you sign a new guy to come in and protect him.
That was crazy. I think I had read like the whole entire starting line is like free, and I think they're gonna have a whole new restructured offensive line. Um, the cutting of Schwartz and who else was it? Fisher.
Yeah, it was Fisher.
At one point, very good, and if I mean some would say the best at their position. They are getting older though. Um, Schwartz did come in with I think Travis Kelsey, and Eric Fisher's been there for a long time. Both Pro Bowl linemen at one point, but again, getting older and the injuries they've had is hard to come back from. Was Schwartz Achilles or was that Eric Fisher?
That was Fisher.
Fisher. I mean, at that age, with so much weight, taking care of your quarterback, your franchise, $500 million quarterback. Maybe they thought is he wouldn't recover from the Achilles. Age is up there, money. So when they cut both of them, I was kind of like, I want Pat Mahomes to run for the entire season next year. Like, but Joe Thuney is a good start, a very good offensive lineman. I'm very surprised the Patriots got rid of him or let him walk. Because yes, we are talking about the Patriots signing all these players, but not re-signing Joe Thuney, I think, is huge, especially for Cam Newton. But that's neither here or there. This is for the Chiefs. I think that's a good start, but they need more pieces, is what I'm saying. So Joe Thuney is a start, but to keep Patrick Mahomes safe and the $500 million dude standing in the pocket, they definitely need more. Joe Thuney is a good start, though.
Don?
I think there's two ways to look at this. I think one is that you take the option of that the Chiefs are cash strapped. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of money to be spending on getting basically anybody. And I mean, obviously, when you look at what needs to be done, I mean, the Super Bowl was painted down to basically that Mahomes could not sit in the pocket. If Mahomes is able to sit in the pocket, if he can hold on to the ball for 5 seconds, he's going to be able to get a touchdown. I mean, he's just one of those quarterbacks that's like so insane, and he has so many offensive options. But obviously, they didn't let him do that, and that's why they lost the Super Bowl. I think that them having basically zero income and they can't spend any money on getting anybody is pretty important. And I think the other way that you look at it is that Fisher is recovering from a torn ACL and then Schwartz from a back procedure. So I'm not sure that they think that those guys are going to be returning to 100%. And then on top of that, I'm not sure that, yeah, I'm not sure what they're looking to put them. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to come back from losing a Super Bowl because of your offensive line and then to just basically rebuild it from scratch and with new players and leaving a lot more holes in it, basically meaning that the same thing might repeat itself. But who knows? Maybe these guys step up and cover them, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, I think, when I first saw that they cut those two guys, I was like, what are the Chiefs doing? Patrick Mahomes was just, running for almost 500 yards just in scramble yardage. and now you're cutting his two best linemen. Admittedly, one of them is coming off a major injury, and the other one, was hurt last year. But it's like those were the two guys that you felt most in the Super Bowl. Like, man, if they had those two guys, they could have won that game.
Yeah.
And now you just cut them. But then they went and signed Tooney, and I was like, okay, maybe they're not going to have him run for his life. They're going to try to at least spend a little bit on his line. And then who knows? Maybe they do have some backups out there that they're developing that, hey, or maybe they're looking in the draft for him. Now, granted, I don't know how deep this offensive line draft is outside of like Sewell at like the top with Oregon. I don't know exactly where he's projected to go right now. I think he's in that like 3 to 5 range. But like guys like that, I mean, maybe they're looking to go out and get one of those offensive lineman prospects. And I mean, the Chiefs are cash strapped, like you're saying, Dalton. I mean, like they are up against the cap. I mean, Mahomes, to his credit, Mahomes did a Brady and he restructured his contract to create cap space. I mean, like, I wish more quarterbacks would do that. Otherwise, I think the league would be much more interesting than the Brady show every like 2 years. But I think that at least for now, the Chiefs don't have as strong as line as they did, prior to the start of this offseason. However, Tooney's a great start, like you were saying, Eddie. Like, I think that is a really solid piece to build around. And now it's just going to be up to them to kind of fill out the rest of it, whether that be through some more, economical options through free agency or they go through the draft. But either way, they got to fill the line because you can't have Patrick Mahomes running for his life.
Yeah. And like, I don't think Pat's contract kicks in till, was it next year or this year coming up?
I believe it's this year coming up, I think.
This year coming up. So, I mean, maybe the cap's not that big of a deal, but I mean, getting rid of Fisher and Schwartz definitely gives them more options. And I think Travis Kelce was also being told to possibly take a pay cut, but not sure yet. But Travis Kelce said on the Pat McAfee show that he's open to take a pay cut if it's worth protecting his quarterback. He'll do it any day.
Now, of course, the moment we were all waiting for, there is a new starting quarterback in Chicago, and his name is Andy Dalton. That is not exactly what most people were expecting to have happen. Of course, Chicago Bears fans were really looking forward to seeing Russell Wilson tearing it up in the Windy City, or even Deshaun Watson, and neither of those happened. So, Dalton, where do you think the Bears are going with a quarterback room consisting of Andy Dalton and Nick Foles?
Obviously, I'm super happy that they didn't get Wilson. Just want to start off with that as a Seahawks fan. So when I heard those rumors, I saw that it was he was going to be traded to the Cowboys. I was like, okay, Dak got paid, let's go. And then I saw that the Bears were the leading, and I was like, okay, thank God they got Andy Dalton. So Cowboys are really holding it out for me right now. But getting Andy Dalton, I mean, you look back on all this, and the Bengals did make the playoffs. And when Andy Dalton was there, he definitely, I mean, he wasn't the greatest, but he wasn't the worst quarterback in the league. So he's not a terrible pickup here, but the Bears, do I think that they're one quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl? Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but not right now and what's going on. So I think that picking up Andy Dalton might be just a way to make it to the playoffs and have some semblance of winning games. But Nick Foles is obviously not what we thought he was going to be. I mean, I didn't really have the idea that he was some god player. I think he had one game in the Super Bowl, obviously, where he went off against the Patriots. But besides that, I mean, he never really proved himself for anything. So I think that the Bears getting Andy Dalton when they had the thoughts of getting Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson is definitely a huge loss for them. But I think that Andy Dalton is still a solid quarterback. I think he'll be, maybe top half, or if not right below the top half, which is definitely saying something when you're looking at the competition that you're going to be facing. So,
Eddie?
I still think it's Nick Foles' job. Andy Dalton did get 6 wins with the Cowboys, although he didn't play all of them because he was injured for a bit. But yeah, I don't think he gets a starting job over Nick Foles. I still think Nick Foles is good. Like, we forget that this was the dude who, saved the Eagles season and brought them a championship. I mean, yes, he did do good against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. He got rid of my Vikings out of the playoffs. He totally ran them off. So if he can get back to that form, I don't think Andy Dalton. I mean, let's be real. This isn't the biggest signing in the league.
yeah.
but like Dalton was saying, 3 years ago, yes, they were a quarterback away from definitely being a Super Bowl contending team. I just don't think they have enough pieces around them. I don't even know if Allen Robinson's coming back, or I think they tagged him. Did they
They
tag him?
tagged him, but we'll
Yeah.
see if he wants to play for either of those quarterbacks because I think he was really hoping they were going to get a Russ.
Yeah, and like their offensive, I mean, yeah, defensively they're talented with Khalil Mack and company, but offensively, there's not really much to give to Nick Foles or Andy Dalton.
I do think that the Bears. I think you can count on Andy Dalton not throwing a pick in the game, and I think that's probably the biggest thing for them. While I don't think that I think that they're going to play really conservative with him, especially if they play him, comparative to Nick Foles. And I mean, I think you win a lot of games as a Bear because you can just hold people under 14. I mean, not a lot of people are going to be scoring on that defense, and if Andy Dalton or Nick Foles is able to just I'm looking at mostly Andy Dalton because I think that he'll actually be taking the starting position after the first couple games, just depending on how they go. But looking at Andy Dalton, if he can throw two, 3 good touchdown passes, I think they just win the game against most of these high teams just because it's so hard to score in that defense. So I think Andy Dalton looks like a better quarterback because this year, I think he looks like a better quarterback this year because of the defense comparative to last year when he was with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think that it's Dalton's job personally. I think that they brought him in to be the starting quarterback. I think that if they wanted to get a backup, they probably wouldn't have gone for Andy Dalton because this really kind of set it up as a quarterback controversy almost immediately, right? Like they're probably going to have a competition. I think that Dalton wins that competition, especially if there are offseason programs and stuff this season, which I believe there will be. So I think that it's Dalton's job. I mean, this is a disappointment for Bears fans, right? Like they were, had all these visions of what if we get Deshaun or Russ and they get Andy Dalton? Like that's going to be a, disappointment. I don't think Dalton's a bad quarterback. I don't consider him an above average quarterback at this point in his career. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I think he's better than Trubisky though. And Trubisky had him in playoff position at certain points during the season. Same with Nick Foles. So who knows? Maybe Dalton comes in and with this defense, he can win him some games because Dalton started slow with the Cowboys last season, but by the end, he was playing pretty decently, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, he nearly got his head taken off in like his second start, and that didn't really help much. But
yeah, and also he was yeah. I mean, he was with the Cowboys too, so we got to give him credit for that.
Yeah. Now, one team that we all kind of expect to probably be in the running for the Super Bowl next year is good old TB12 down in Tampa Bay. They reloaded this offseason. We thought that, maybe with the cap and everything, they might lose some guys. They aren't losing anybody. Gronk, Levante David, Chris Godwin's back.
Levante David.
Yeah, all these guys are coming back, and some are taking discounts. So, Eddie, I want to start with you. As far as I know, Antonio Brown and Fournette are the only major pieces left to re-sign for this team. Are they going back to the Super Bowl next year?
I believe so. I mean, you really just have to take out I need to correct that. You really just had to take out Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. Drew Brees is gone. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is still. I mean, the past 2 years, the Packers have been in the same position. I don't know what's wrong why they can't get over the hump. And I think with all these re-signings and getting Brown back and Fournette back, I think Tampa Bay is a team to beat. I definitely feel like they're going to run the South with Carolina and the Falcons. The Saints getting weaker without Brees now. The NFC East, we don't know who's going to come out on that. Like every year, they're always trash. You know that Green Bay and either Minnesota's going to come out. So, and again with your team, the Rams, they loaded up too. So, and the Seahawks, there's a whole bunch of drama going on there. So yeah, I guess we can really see Tampa Bay as being maybe possibly the number 1 seed next year with all these re-signings, and they're definitely the team to beat.
Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Eddie. Anytime you have the Super Bowl champions coming in, I mean, they're going to be the favorites for the next year, unless they lose some crazy asset. But I'm not sure how I feel about people taking a chapter out of the Tom Brady book of taking salary cuts to strengthen your team. Because I think that yeah, it's awesome, but it also means that, you're able to put together a team that, like, when I look at it on paper, I'm like, okay, so where are they weak again? What's wrong with this team? It's really hard to pick out. I mean, I think signing one of the things I will say is I definitely think Antonio Brown's going to re-sign just because, I mean, I'm not really sure a whole lot of teams want him. He's a controversial player and he's hard to really like keep the reins on. And I think Tom Brady's done a great job of doing that so far. And then I think that Leonard Fournette will most likely sign again because I mean he was cut last year, so I mean nobody else picked him up besides Tampa Bay. So I'm not sure that he's going to be really huge. So I think that they're going to have the exact same roster that they had last year, and then with draft picks, they're probably going to be able to pick up a couple players that maybe play, probably not, mostly just go to training facilities. But I think that this team just wins it again. I mean, I'm not seeing anybody else. The biggest contender is most likely the Chiefs, and they are literally playing with just like 5 random dudes guarding Patrick Mahomes. So I'm not really sure that there's going to be anybody to contest against them. Because again, like Eddie said, I mean, Minnesota Packers, but I'm not sure. The Packers have always been like, you can't count them out, but like you can't put your money on them either. And then obviously the Seahawks, being a huge fan of them, they're definitely struggling. I mean, they won't surround Russell with anybody to protect him. Same thing with Mahomes. So I think this is going to be one of those years that sneaky defense from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be able to like kind of run through teams, especially with such an offensive weapons on the side. With I mean, like you can just keep naming the players. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, another name that I forgot to mention is Shaq Barrett, also back on another hometown discount deal. Like the only major player I know for sure that they're probably going to lose is Sue in that interior of the defensive line. However, I mean, with the way things are going, maybe he takes a pay cut.
Yeah.
And like I'm not seeing much movement on him right now. So like I think this team is probably penciled in to represent the NFC. It usually isn't always that simple. You need to survive injury luck and everything, but at least on paper, you can look at the Bucks and go, "Yep, that's the best team in the NFL." Don't like you're saying, where is this team weak? Nowhere.
Yeah.
And one thing I am hearing is that there's a possibility that Fournette might go to New England. But on the flip side, I'm also hearing that James White might be being evaluated by Tampa. So Brady might get one of his favorite receiving running back weapons to throw to. And that's like the one spot of the team may be a little light is Ronald Jones and Fournette don't really function as pass catching backs. That was almost kind of like Shady's role for the few times we saw him, LaShawn, with the team. So if they get James White, I mean, that's just another dimension to this offense. So I think it's pretty safe to say you can pencil Tampa in right now.
Oh, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, like, it's crazy that they were able to re-sign the greatest receiver in free agency, and then the best pass rusher in free agency. I think that was like the biggest like key to repeating this year. And then they go ahead and re-sign Levante Davis and re-sign Gronk and everybody else along with that. I thought that was crazy. Like, where are their caps coming from? Like, the tag was easy, and then Shaq Barrett, he wanted a big pay job. Supposedly he was going to get 100 mil, and he, like you said, took the pay cut, 72 mil, and it seems going to be hard to beat. Plus, they still have the draft to just, like you said, if they don't sign Sue, they can go ahead and just draft a DT or anywhere else they need to, to strengthen. And with that, along with these re-signings, this team's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah. I was just going to say on the writer point about the pass catching, I think that a lot of teams can abuse that, especially, you want to stretch the field as long as you can. And you want to move the chains, which is like Tom Brady's like bread and butter. But I will say it's a little hard to say that they're going to not be able to stretch the field when you have Antonio Brown, oh my God, I'm forgetting.
Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Godwin.
And
that one, I'm forgetting his name. It was the rookie receiver out in Minnesota that made like that one-handed catch in the Saints game or something.
His name starts with a P, right? It's
talking about the speedster.
No, he's a bit more of a taller guy archetype. I'll try and find his name real quick.
But yeah, but just to the point is like, it's hard to really say like having a pass catching back is going to be like a detriment of the team when in fact that like it's hard for like anybody to guard all these players. I mean, the safety's job again, like you basically need a Jamal Adams on every team to stop that deep ball from going. So yeah, it's like it's probably the biggest thing that you got to look at.
Yeah, and I like Ronald Jones too. Um, I feel like with another year under him, he'll be even better. He is more of a north south. He can catch. I mean, but obviously he's not, these prototype catching backs like Kamara and plus. So, but I still like Ronald Jones. I think he's going to be really good for this team.
Dude's name is Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota, by the way. That's the guy I was thinking of. And of course, Eddie, like you pointed out, how could I forget Scotty Miller? Like, come on,
Yeah.
we all love Scotty Miller.
Yeah, I mean, he can't beat Tyreek Hill in a race, but
No, but I mean, he can
he's
come
pretty
close at least.
good. Yeah.
All right, so speaking of wide receivers, major name at least came off the board today. AJ Green going to Arizona. Eddie, let's get your reactions on Kyler Murray's new toy.
New toy or new broken toy? So AJ Green was obviously one of the best receivers, like at one point. But too many injuries to this man, like just definitely demoralized his career and just put him down. I still think he can give you like a couple flashes in the end zone, but at 32 years of age, with so many years with the Bengals and just getting injured a lot. I mean, a 1 year deal to 8 mil is not bad, right? It's kind of let's see what you got left in the tank kind of deal. Um, I mean, with D Hop and company, I think Kyler Murray should be able to have more red zone threats, but I don't know how AJ Green's going to fit in. He's never really been like the number 2, number 3, which he might have to play. Then who knows? Like maybe that helps his career here, especially where he's at his age. You still see Larry Fitzgerald doing it. If he can do anything that Larry Fitz can do at this point, maybe he goes to the slot now since he's not the number 1. Maybe that'll help out extend his career, and we'll see. I think it's still pretty good at the price, but we got to see what AJ Green still has left in the tank. Because last year, I mean, he didn't play all of 2019. He only put up 500 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. And then 2018, he put up 600. So it's definitely not the 1,000-yard receiver that we're used to seeing. So if he can, just be a red zone threat, I think it'd be pretty good.
Dalton?
I'm just happy somebody saved him. I mean, it's been so long.
Too late, though. Too late.
Yeah, I know. But he's been crying for help since the start of his career, dude. He's just been, please, somebody save me. And I mean, I think it's kind of funny that they get Joe Burrow, and I think that Joe Burrow is like a legit talent.
Yeah.
And I think that it's funny that, that year is like the one, like right after that they trade him. But I guess my focal point is less on AJ Green because I think as he gets older and older, I mean, you got to say that like him running a 2 or a 3 is not the worst thing that he can do in his career, right? Especially at the age he is now. I mean, again, like you said, he never played that position before. So, I mean, putting him in the slot might be good for him. We'll see what he can do. And I mean, he isn't that same 1,000-yard receiver. But I think my main focus is on Arizona. I mean, they picked up J.J. Watt this year. So I'm not really sure. They're basically just taking all Houston's players and then just building them around the same core. So I'm not sure if it will be the same Houston team. I think that they're picking up a lot of really old players. I think that my only idea for what they're trying to do is trying to use this old talent to try to like teach some new guys what to do. Because I mean, like you look at that team and it's just so young. I mean, Kyler Murray, what is this, his 3rd year in the league? I mean, he's like a child, and you're just giving him more and more toys to play with. And I think that having AJ Green is definitely going to be helpful for him. I'm not sure if we'll get to see, some semblance of what he was like back in his prime, but I'm definitely hopeful. I think that this is a good pickup for Arizona. With the pay, it's not terrible, so pretty good.
Yeah, I think that obviously he's not what he once was. I mean, like at the very least, on paper, they've got the best name brand recognition in all of football at this point. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, and AJ Green. If you had like constructed that in Madden like 5 years ago, you'd be feeling really good about yourself right about now. But I mean, now, kind of like Eddie's saying, he's injured. It's been a while since he's been a true like threat. But I think that this could be good for him. I mean, he gets to go to new surroundings that aren't the Bengals. I mean, let's be honest here, that organization could suck your soul out if it wants to. So I think that this is good for him. I want to see, what role he takes, kind of like you guys were saying, is he a 2? Is he a 3? Like, he's never struck me as a 3. Like he's never been that like slot receiver type build. He's always been the outside threat. So maybe what you see is you see Fitz move more and more to that interior slot work, and then you got D Hop and you got AJ out on the wings, outside the numbers. Maybe you do that. And then I think you also got to remember Christian Kirk's also a guy. Like Kirk had some good games last season for Arizona. So I mean, like I don't exactly know how AJ Green fits in, but it's another veteran presence that at least gets to go play somewhere else in his career that isn't Cincinnati. So that's probably for the best. I mean, don't like you're saying he was crying for help for so long, and he finally got out, and he gets to go play with an exciting quarterback in Kyler Murray. And this is a tough division, but it's also a division that's going to be a little light on corners. I think that 4 wide receiver sets, especially outside of maybe the Rams, but even the Rams are losing a couple pieces this offseason on defense. Like it's going to be a high scoring division. So I think that getting any weapons you can for Kyler Murray is great.
Yeah. And I think I just saw a trade right now that they got Rodney Hudson. So Kyler Murray is getting like pretty much everything right now. And a new center in Rodney Hudson, veteran, is pretty good. So they're stacking up.
No, they look good. I mean, it's real name recognition heavy, obviously. So
yeah.
I think like the JJ pick is something where I'm pretty sure they were gonna cut him. So I mean, like I feel it's like Houston's way of being like, no, we want to give you a new home. So yeah, I mean, I look forward to seeing what they can do, but I'm not sure if their team's gonna change that much. I think that they'll be better, but I'm not sure if they'll be great yet. So I'm not even sure they won the division. So
that's a tough division. It's a tough division.
I mean, there's not a lot of freebies in that division. I mean, regardless of where you go. So
especially this year coming up, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah.
All right, so last week we talked about a certain Dallas Cowboys quarterback and what kind of contract we pay him. Turns out we are way more fiscally responsible than Jerry Jones is, because Jerry went out and he made sure to pay Dak a 4-year, $160 million extension. Works out to $40 million a year, which is a little higher than where most of us were at last week, or last episode in this case. So I wanted to get your immediate reactions to that Dak contract. Dylan, we'll start with you.
Let's see. We said 32, right?
Yeah, it was. We had a couple 32s. I think one of us
25,
was at 28.
25.
Yeah, Eddie was at 25.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it seems to me, I thought they were using Andy Dalton as leverage against him, and then they trade him away. So they're just like, okay, you're our only quarterback. How much money you want, basically? And I mean, I will say that I am open to see what he does, because I don't think that he's worth $40 million a year. I mean, it's hard for me to say that like a 4-year deal for 160 is like, I'm like, when I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah. That's how much he's worth. Yeah. Every pick he throws, yeah. That's it. But I don't know. I don't think that the pay is something that Jerry cares about. I think he just wants to win a ring, and I think that his thought process behind it, it's hard. Again, it's really hard to tell what Jerry's thinking. But if I had to determine it, I would say he's probably thinking to himself like, oh yeah, I mean, I just need to get his mind off the money and onto the game, and then he'll be a great quarterback again. So that's the only thing I can think that he was thinking there. But I think that he way overpaid. I think that he could have definitely strong-armed him into like, I mean, it should be 32. It should be 32 or lower a year. But I mean, $8 million, what is that to Jerry, right? He doesn't care.
Eddie?
I love it. As a Cowboy full-time hater, I love it. This means that that means for the 4 years coming up, they will not do anything. So I'm cool with it. I think it's a pretty big waste of money, especially after injury. I think the right move would have been to tag it and let's see what you can do after injury. But Jerry Jones is known to do like some stupid stuff over the past couple of years. So I think this is one of them. And then he overpaid Zeke. He overpaid Amari Cooper. He overpaid DeMarcus Lawrence. Too many mega contracts. And the defense is still like 32nd worst in the league. They lost. It shows, and they can't sign anymore because they lost Chidobe Awuzie, I think, to the Bengals. So that was their best corner, and he's gone. And I think they're just going to be out of money. So I don't think the problem was re-signing Dak. The problem was their defense. I mean, they gave up 30-plus every game last year. So I don't know why they did this, unless they're gonna do some cap fighting and find a way, Jerry Jones, to keep signing defensive players. But I don't know. They'll probably restructure, trade Zeke. That's way too much money for him just to be a fullback. So I don't know. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I want to add on is good for Dak. Like, this man has a catastrophic ankle injury, almost, I think it's like, 6 months ago now. And not only did he improve his contract value of what he was asking for over the last season, I mean, he got the years he wanted, like everything that Dak wanted, he got from this deal. So just hats off to Dak because, I mean, he got everything he wanted in that contract.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wish injury on anyone, but I still don't like the dude as a quarterback. So I don't think he's all that. Just saying. Uh, but yeah, I think it's gonna hurt him.
Now, before we move on to our last topic, I just want to really touch base real quick. Of course, we got a Rams fan here, we got a Vikings fan, and we got a Seahawks fan. So how are you guys feeling about you guys' free agencies so far? Eddie, we'll start with you.
So far we have not done a single thing. Like my Vikings always do. They just wait. They let all the best players get signed first, and then they go ahead and make some noise on like the last tier splashes. But yeah, we really haven't done anything. I guess we're gonna wait on the draft. We did sign a defensive tackle, Dalvin Tomlinson from the Giants, but 2 years, 22 mil. Nothing too crazy. I'm still waiting on them to. I don't know. Kenny Galladay's still out there. Curtis Samuel, maybe another receiver. Melvin Ingram is still free, so we definitely need some pass rushing because we totally lost our entire defensive line with Linville Joseph being gone, Everson Griffin being gone. Daniil Hunter had a serious neck injury, had surgery. We don't know how he's going to come back. So our D line was completely destroyed last year. So I would like Melvin Ingram, but we need to see. And Hassan Reddick's free as well. We need defensive line so bad. I keep hearing Patrick Peterson, but I don't know about him. He's washed, and when he got caught with like cheating steroids, I don't know if that destroyed his identity. But as of right now, we haven't done anything.
Don?
Yeah, I mean, same. We really haven't done anything. We got Witherspoon. I mean, that was cool. Yeah. It's just like I look at this team and it's just like the Seahawks. I mean, it's like everyone always says like this team is one quarterback away from making, like we've had the quarterback for so long, and it's just like we finally found like these offensive weapons. I mean, again, running back position is always just something that seems that we've been struggling with for the past 3 years, but it's the same position as the Chiefs. I mean, offensive line is just like complete garbage. There's absolutely like that's the thing. Like Wilson is getting sacked like 2 times a game in some of like these super intense games near the playoffs, and especially in these divisions where like we're playing against the 49ers, we're playing against the Rams, we're playing against the Cardinals. Like you can't expect to win this division if you have no offensive line, which is something that they've been struggling with. I guess I like that they're addressing the defense, but I mean, we're letting a lot of picks go. Like, I know we just lost 2. We lost Philip Dorsett and we lost
Shaquille Griffin.
Yeah, Shaquille Griffin and Carlos Hyde, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, giving up these picks, I don't think is terrible, but it just makes us slightly weaker. So, hopefully we get something. I mean, but it seems like everything got scooped up by the Pats, so I'm not really that hopeful to grab anything at this point.
Yeah.
At least for me as a Rams fan, it's been a painful, like 48 hours. We lost, Samson Ebukam. We lost Michael Brockers because we traded him to the Lions, which is hilarious considering like 2 weeks. Yeah, we traded him to the Lions, which is hilarious considering like 2 weeks ago he had just stated like, man, we got Matthew Stafford. He's such an upgrade over Goff, and now he gets to go play with Goff again. Saw that today, and that was kind of funny. We lost Josh Johnson over our starting safety over to Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so we're losing a lot of pieces. We managed to renegotiate or restructure Jalen Ramsey and Robert Woods' contracts, try and create a little more cap space. And we re-signed Leonard Floyd, which I am super happy with. Like, that is a really great partner to have next to Aaron Donald. It's really pressure. But other than that, I mean, we're feeling the Aaron Donald and the Ramsey contract and the Matthew Stafford deal and everything. Like, we're feeling that. a lot because we just don't have money to sign anybody. So it's going to be a year for us coming up where we're really going to need a lot of the younger guys to really step up because otherwise we just don't have as many pieces as we did last year. So
Yeah. And Troy Hill's still a free agent, right?
yeah, even though we did slap a second round tender on him, so we'll see if anybody wants to pay that price.
I know it happened a little bit ago, but what do you think about the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford?
Complete upgrade. I'm not too bent out of shape. I love Stafford. Paying 2 first round picks again is a bit iffy for me, but I mean, it's worth it to get a better quarterback, especially one who McVay wants to work with.
Yeah,
So.
I mean he's young too, so you definitely got some. You can put some mileage on him, so we'll see. He's a big guy too, so even though that offensive line is not like extremely stacked, he can take a hit or two.
I think it's funny how we're saying that he's got some mileage on him. Like that's the talk about quarterbacks now. Like because Tom Brady just said you could play till you're 45. So right now Matthew Stafford's like 32, 33, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny that we're saying mileage now because usually around this point is like towards the end of your career.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like you know what, you can play till 40, 45. So he's got like 10 more years in him. So
yeah, for all I know, I've got my quarterback for the next 12 years, and I just don't know it yet. But
yeah, exactly.
All right, so of course we're moving on to our last topic for this episode. Drew Brees has decided to hang him up after a very decorated career. I wanted to get you guys' first reactions to that, as well as your favorite like Drew Brees. Like, what are you going to remember Drew Brees for? And Dolan, I want to start with you.
Yeah, I mean he finished out on top, right? Like, no, I mean he closed out his season. The Saints, I guess they were a little disappointed this season with how it turned out, but I mean, you're a quarterback that plays for 20 seasons, so of course you picked up some crazy accolades. I mean, he's been throwing for 5,000 yards for like, I think he played for like 7 seasons, which is like, or I think was it 5? It's 5 or 7. It's one of the seasons, but he's obviously an amazing quarterback, and I mean, I don't know if it's a particular memory I have of him, but like, I guess I always like my favorite thing was always the stat line between Tom and Brady and Drew Brees about the career passing yards. And I always remember I really enjoyed tracking that because every year I was like, Tom Brady's so close, he's gonna finally do it. I'm like, which is gonna give first? And then now they're both like 40 years old still playing, and I'm just like, I don't care anymore. But that was probably my favorite memory of Drew Brees. Was just watching that line.
Eddie.
It's tough to talk about Drew Brees, honestly. Being a Minnesota Vikings fan, it's like I really hate Drew Brees. Like honestly, like I'm glad he's gone. I still remember the Bounty Gate in 2009 when if that didn't happen, if they didn't destroy Brett Favre, we'd be the Super Bowl, right? But that's neither here or there. My favorite miracle of Drew Brees would probably be the mini miracle with us back in 2017, getting them out of there. And then Kyle Rudolph, game-winning catch. Push off. You want to say it's a push off? I want to say it's a catch. No, I'm kidding. Just like Dalton was saying, I still respect the dude. Not arguably, he is the most accurate quarterback of all time. If you look at his career, passer rating, percentage completion, it's number one. His name is up there on every record, like Dalton was saying. It was always Tom Brady, it was always Drew Brees. It was actually Drew Brees and then Tom Brady on every record.
Yeah.
Well, Peyton Manning and then those two. But now, I mean, he's literally has everything: consecutive games with TDs, 571 passing touchdowns, you name it, 80,000 passing career yards. Eventually, Tom Brady will, reach that because he's probably going to play till he's 60. So, but yeah, he's definitely, you could say top 5. I mean, he did have problems in the postseason. It's hard to imagine that he's only had one Super Bowl ring, and that was back in 2009. Like, where did the past 11 years go? Like, what has he been doing? I mean, same could be said for Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, like those two, especially Drew Brees, is just too great of a quarterback to just have one. And then a lot of people don't even look at his one ring like, well, I don't because, I'm a Vikings fan. But a lot of people look at his first ring as this like a stained asterisk one. Like, was the Bounty Gate like a whole thing? Like, we don't know. Some people want to take credit away from him. Some people don't. But I'm still going to respect the fact that every game he played, you had to fear just how competitive, how accurate he was, how much of a leader was. I'm going to miss that as a pretty much a rival to this guy. Like, and you kind of knew this was coming. His arm was depleting every year. He just couldn't, his stats, 20 plus yards, his 20 plus passing plays were gone. I think last year he only had like six passes, 20 plus yards or more. Like you can obviously see that he had no more beam or like dots on his arm. So, and then against the Buccaneers in the playoff game, when he went out and he looked back one more time at the field, you knew it was over. So, but again, there was no 100%. Like maybe he's coming back. We don't know about Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill paying him so much money. But yeah, it's finally done. Like I said, all in all, still respect the guy, one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I'm personally going to miss Drew a lot. I thought that especially for what he did, especially as kind of almost like an unheralded guy. Like he was the Chargers starting quarterback and then they dumped him for Phillip Rivers. Like they just cast him aside and he wound up in New Orleans. And like, I mean, he was almost 6 feet tall. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people kind of forget about him is he was kind of like that guy that made Russell Wilson possible, is because otherwise, you probably don't see Russ go in the third round as, 5'11", almost 6 foot quarterback.
Wasn't mobile either.
Yeah. Like, and Drew did it. Like Drew went out there and he did a lot. And kind of like you're saying, Eddie, I mean, when he walked off that field that last time and looked back, I kind of could feel that he was done. I mean, like you could just see it in his eyes almost.
Yeah, you knew it.
But so I'm going to miss him. At least for me, my favorite Drew Brees memory is probably always going to be that 2009 Super Bowl when he won that thing for New Orleans and Peyton had that, onside kick call at the start of the second half and all of that. Like, obviously for a Vikings fan, that's a bit of a sore spot for you.
Yeah,
but at least for me, I can remember, I'm part of a military family. We were overseas in Germany. So I was waking up at like 2 a.m. to watch that game. And like just seeing Drew Brees up there with his kid on the podium with the confetti, like that'll always be my like Drew Brees image in my head looking at it. And just such a talented quarterback. And the NFC is not going to be as interesting a place with him. And I'm always going to wonder, because like you guys are saying, he only had one ring. And like for a guy as talented he was, that's almost a crime. Like he was let down. Like those early 2010s, it was the defense that let him down. Like they had a terrible defense for so long. And then he got the defense, and then just the postseason luck against that dude for the next, 3 to 4 years, where he was just robbed consecutively by miracles / referee negligence.
By your team and my team.
Yep. So, I mean, like, I'm always going to remember Drew Brees as almost like man, he should have won more, but like amazing career. And just like, I'm going to miss Drew.
Yeah. Good guy.
It's bittersweet with me. Like right now, I love to see him gone, but I'm pretty sure when the season comes around and we got to play the Saints and number 9's not suited up, it's gonna sit weird with me.
Well, that's all the topics we have for this week. Thank you all so much for tuning in, listening to us, and we will see you all next week. Have a good one.